title bit, which record the session so that you can share it with any of your colleagues that haven't been able to attend this morning. So over to you, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Sally, and good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see everybody's messages popping up in the chat box, particularly people like Paul Parsons. Now, there's a blast from the past. Hello, Paul. And we have a cruise history in common. So very nice to see everybody this morning. Today, you are going to have a complete whistle-stop tour through GriefChat, who we are, why we set it up, what we do, how it works, and then hopefully I will pause long enough to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you want to ask. Feel free to pop them in the chat box, and both Sally and I will try to keep our eye on it. I think there's also the Q&A function. If you want to do that, or raise your hand and just generally shout. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to share my screen now. I've got a couple of slides to talk through and give you the quick introduction to GriefChat. Now then, hoping you can see that now. Is that okay?
Yep, I can see that.
Super duper duper. Right. So I'll just move all the things around on my screen. There we go. Right. So this is an introduction to GriefChat, and more specifically about the GriefChat partnership with Muchloved. So whether or not you are a Muchloved partner or not, or a GriefChat partner or not, hopefully we'll have something that will pique your interest and that actually might be helpful to both your charity and your colleagues and your service users or supporters. So who am I and what qualifies me to talk to you about this? As Sally said, I am the Managing Director of GriefChat and another business called Professional Help. And we set up Professional Help in 2012. That was after I retired gracefully to the countryside. I was working as the UK Director of Services for Cruise Bereavement Care at that time. And we set up Professional Help. We offer all kinds of employee counselling, staff counselling, bereavement care services. And at that point, it had, when I left Cruise in 2011-ish, one of the things that I'd had conversations about, because I ran the national helpline and looked after the services across the UK for quite some time, was that actually we really struggled to connect people with a bereavement counsellor in less than several weeks. It took a little while for people to get through the system, to maybe able to speak to somebody on a helpline or get a call back from a local area. And it really stuck with me that back in 2011, in this day and age, seems a long time ago now, actually people, we live in a different world. So we live in a world that is very fast moving. We live in a world where we're used to getting really fast answers to questions. We can Google stuff. I remember those of us who are really old like me, and we used to have to look in encyclopedias and it took hours to find stuff. Not anymore, we just Google things. And actually the world changed, and we need and want really to provide fast answers to questions. People expect fast responses. And in lots of ways, that's where GriefChat came from. It came from my frustration and desire to make sure that bereaved people could access support in a timely fashion. They could have their questions answered as quickly as humanly possible, really. Because one of the things that we know about bereaved people is that actually with some, a little bit of advice, a little bit of reassurance, people can kind of accommodate quite a lot. It's not always about needing counselling, needing very long-term support. If I had £1 for everybody in a 25-year career in counselling, if I had £1 for everybody who'd said to me, am I going mad? Then I probably would have retired by now. And actually just being able to chat with somebody and say, no, actually this is really normal and you might feel like this or you might experience that is really important. And the quicker we can do that, then actually it becomes easier to support people earlier rather than later. So that's where GriefChat came from, really. And if you want the funny side of the story, it came from me being sat on a beach, which is one of my favourite hobbies. And my middle daughter was sending me instant messages and just pestering me. Anybody who's got teenagers will be familiar with the mom, 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 mom. And eventually she got an answer. And I thought, actually, that is how we get an answer. We use instant messaging. So we looked at various different messaging platforms and landed on web chat. That at the time when we set up GriefChat, we started to have a think about the proof of concept in 2017. Web chat was not being used as a therapeutic tool at all. So this was a very new world, but we thought it might be useful to people, and then that's where it got us. So essentially, GriefChat provides free and fast access for bereaved people to online chat. And we provide that online chat using qualified, experienced bereavement counsellors. And what we do on GriefChat is give people that reassurance, that support, that opportunity to air their feelings, tell us their story, tell us a little bit about who's died and how they're feeling about that, and who's around them to support them and what they need, and just give them that airtime and support. And it's not for everybody. I mean, you know, people need different things, and GriefChat isn't for everybody, but it's very easy to access. It's accessible on any platform. If you have a mobile or a laptop or a tablet or a PC and an internet connection, you can use GriefChat. And clearly there are some client groups, people who are not sort of digitally enabled, or people who are not that confident with typing and so on and so forth. So it's not perfect for everybody, but generally speaking, it's reasonably fast and easy to access for a very large proportion of the population. And the other thing we can also tell people about are relevant services that might be able to help them in the longer term. GriefChat, it tends to be a short-term intervention, although people do come back. We know that around about 25 to 30% of our customers come back and chat to us more than once. And that's absolutely okay as well. But we can tell people about what's out there in the community. We can tell people about what's not out there in the community and what they might struggle to find. And also help them really find the confidence to pick up the phone and talk to some of those longer term services. And from a standing start in 2017, we are now, actually, that's a little bit of a white lie, because I think we'll tick over this number tomorrow. We'll be at 65,000 chats and counting, because they come in thick and fast every day. So really the problem that we wanted to address, other than the speed of connection between bereaved people and counsellors, was just the sheer volume of people who experience a bereavement. You know, in 2020, we had a big uplift on the number of people that died for obvious reasons, and we expect that to follow through really over the next few years, which essentially means if you have more deaths, you have more bereaved people. Depending on which statistic you believe, whether 3 people are significantly affected by a death, or if you believe 10 people are significantly affected by a death. And you know what? It depends on the person who died, and it depends on their family structure, and it depends on how they died, and a million other factors, how many people will be affected. But essentially, if we got, you know, 696,000 deaths in 2020, you're looking at 1 million, 2 million, possibly more than that, newly bereaved people. And grief doesn't have a time scale. So obviously you're not only bereaved for 1 year, you are bereaved for a number of years. And we've had people right the way up to 40 years post-bereavement talk to us on GriefChat. It's quite often triggered, that grief again, by a more recent loss. But actually a lot of people, for whatever reason, have not dealt with things that have happened to them, have managed to soldier on, and then something has come up further down the line where they feel that they need that little bit of extra support. So essentially, it's about really making sure that we can provide something to the majority of people. That was really the kind of desire behind GriefChat, was to make bereavement care more widely available. And of course, we've got at the moment, and it was very much exacerbated by the pandemic, a lot of community services, a lot of the charities, guys from hospices and stuff, you know, we had to pause services. We run quite a lot of face-to-face services in professional help, and everything that was face-to-face paused, whether it was groups or one-to-one or whatever it would be. And it took a while to move on to electronic sort of means of service delivery, whether it was by, you know, webcam or phone or however we changed. But it took a while, and that's had a knock-on effect on the availability of services. So in that sense, rather than waiting several months to speak to a counsellor, we set up GriefChat so that people can wait a few seconds. And it does say 30 seconds here. The average wait time is about 12 seconds between actually getting through on the system and talking to a counsellor. So we think that's a significant improvement. Why GriefChat? We kind of looked at various different chat systems, and actually our preferred method was by Messenger, but actually the logistics behind that were a little bit trickier, and there were quite a lot of really good chat-based platforms to use these days. So we picked on one and tried it out and hoped it would work. And actually what we found over the 4 years of running GriefChat is that web chat actually does provide quite a satisfactory response. As long as it is chat, we've road tested a lot of other people's systems, and the chat services that take a long time to respond, or they've got a lot of hoops to jump through before people actually get to talk to somebody, are less effective. With GriefChat, we very deliberately chose not to implement any pre-chat forms. There are no barriers to anybody coming straight through and talking to a counsellor. It's anonymous, it's confidential, and people can get straight on and just chat directly to a counsellor, which in lots of ways means that a wider range of people actually access it. We get way more guys using GriefChat than we do any other counselling service. So that's quite an interesting switch, really, that people do find that it's because it's anonymous and people can say exactly what's on their mind very, very quickly. It is quite open access in that sense, and people tell us that it's a good experience, is that it leaves a high number of people feeling very satisfied. We've got a fantastic amount of feedback from 65,000 chats, as you might imagine, and generally speaking, I think we're about 99% satisfaction with how the chat went and how people felt supported through that. And it does appeal quite, to a range of people who might not engage with traditional services or might be a little bit reluctant to pick up the phone and ask for help. Just going to check the Q&A box. Is Grief 24/7 service? No, it isn't. We run 9 till 9 Monday to Friday. It could be a 24/7 service. We would certainly like to run it as a 24/7 service, but it's having the resources. So watch this space as we continue to develop. That's certainly a possibility in the future. Okay. Right, next page. I'm just conscious of time this morning. We haven't got a huge amount of it. So we're offering bereaved people online chats. Everybody who works on GriefChat is a qualified, experienced bereavement counsellor. And we offer that whole range of advice, support, reassurance, information, signposting, and helping people to access those longer term services. We also have a counselling team at GriefChat and professional help of about 250 bereavement counsellors. So sometimes people will say to us on the system, do you know what, I can't get into a community service, or I want a service now. I'm really quite keen to access some counselling and I'm willing and able to pay for it. Can you find me someone? So one of the things we will also do, if that question is asked, is to say to people, actually, you can book a bereavement counsellor online and all of our counsellors are fully vetted, rather than send them somewhere like Counselling Directory, where you've got to spend a good number of hours trawling through lists of people and trying to find somebody who would suit you. So we always send people first to a free at the point of need service, a community service, a charity, or to the service from which they originated. So GriefChat sits on a lot of hospice websites, and often they would have a bereavement team. So the first point of call really for all of our services to refer people back to the service that they came from, but we can also offer private counselling as well. So that's the kind of crux of it, really. GriefChat is offered via other people's websites. When we set up GriefChat, for those of you that might have seen us in the early days, we had the box all over the GriefChat website, and it became pretty clear, we were not set up really to provide GriefChat in that way. One of the reasons that GriefChat isn't a charity is because we didn't want to compete with other charities for funding, and nobody pays us to provide GriefChat directly to bereaved people. So we have stepped that back through the GriefChat website now, and actually it's a little bit harder to find because we want people to go to your website, and we want bereaved people to be supported on the websites that they are on. So whether that's a charity, or whether that's a funeral director, or whether that's an organisation that touches a lot of bereaved people, actually we plug GriefChat into other people's websites, and that's how we pay for the service essentially. We would normally be charging a subscription fee for that. And we have about 80 active partners at the minute, and quite a few on a waiting list ready to be onboarded with our service. And we provide to the biggest bereavement charity in the world, which is Cruise Bereavement Care, and also Cruise Scotland and Sons, and lots of names that you would recognise. And also a lot of hospices, air ambulance charities, cancer charities, and so on and so on and so forth. We keep our light fairly well hidden under a bushel, but we were very pleased to win a couple of awards this year. 2 of them were pretty unexpected, to be honest, but we won the Best Bereavement Support and the Most Innovative Service Awards at the Good Funeral Awards this year, which was really lovely. And it's, I actually should have changed this slide. This is a slide from yesterday. So it's free of charge for small independent funeral directors. It's also free of charge to much loved Optimum charities. So you actually get 500 chats a year. You get more than the funeral directors. So with your much loved Optimum partnership, you would be entitled to 500 free chats a year from the service. And quite often we get people who are a little bit worried and say, what if we get more than 500 chats? Well, do you know what? Unless you are a bereavement charity or an organisation with very large numbers of bereaved people who are hitting your website, quite often you're not likely to exceed 500 chats a year. 500 chats a year is a substantial service in that sense. So don't worry too much about that. But if you do exceed it, there's a little rate where you can either pay an extra fee per chat, or you can pay sort of a small, sort of usually 50 or 100 pounds if you're getting a lot of chats as a subscription every month. So in that sense, it should come at no additional cost to your service. And that's one of the reasons that Much Loved partnered with us. Much Loved was set up by a bereaved person to kind of keep the person who died at the centre of everything that was going on the Much Loved platform. And I think GriefChat as an addition to that actually fits really well for bereaved people. It does sit best on a bereavement support page or an About Grief web page, or on your tribute fund section on your website, or an in memory section on your website. We tend to tell people, try not to stick us on the homepage, because people will come chat to us rather than actually look around your website. And it does say, here again, I should have changed this one, but I've been a bit busy this morning. It takes around 10 minutes to install. So some people sometimes worry and say like, oh, are we going to have to bring in a web developer? Is it going to take ages to do it? The answer is no, it takes about 10 minutes. Your web developer should be able to do it free of charge, particularly if they're working with you as a charity, or it shouldn't cost you very much to get it installed. I can install it myself, so if you've got any technical knowledge and access to your own website, you should be able to do it yourself as well. And there are lots of examples on the GriefChat website. Don't look at the funeral director section unless you're interested in funeral directors. Look at the charity section. Lots of examples of the charities that we work with, or some of the charities that we work with. It's going to take a pause for a minute and just check the messages. Would the service be suitable to those who are not bereaved but struggling with the effects of major life-altering events? Yes, I think it does, and it is, and we do get some people. We also get people who are diagnosed with life-limiting illness, and we get people who are anticipating the death of somebody that they love. So in that sense, we don't turn people away. If people want to come chat to us about grief, that's perfectly okay. Next question was, does the 500 chats a year cover 500 unique chats or cumulative chats, including repeat visitors? It is unique chats. And the reason for that is because the only thing we track at the moment on GriefChat, and I'll explain the reasons for it, is IP address. And that is completely unreliable. It gives us some indication as to whereabouts people are in the world, but so many people use mobile devices or VPNs, or they're at work. For example, if you work for the NHS, your internet access will come through the US, so it actually looks like you're a US customer. So it's really unreliable. So in that sense, if you're using more than one device, we can't track that repeatedly. The only things that we can track are static IPs, where people come back on the same IP address. So it's a little bit of an imprecise art form. So we tend to treat every chat as a new and individual chat, which is why we talk about chats rather than people, because we genuinely don't know how many people use the service. which is a bit tricky for PR, but you know, it is what it is. It's the nature of the service. And because it's anonymous as well, we don't want to ask people to put in their email addresses or phone numbers or anything like that. In that sense, we don't follow people up. We're not interested in selling them anything. So there's no reason for us to collect that data. So we can just measure chat numbers. No problem. Have a look at the question box. Will we be able to see how many chats have been accessed? Yes, if you are a charity, then we will be more than happy to give you a monthly report if you are busy, or a quarterly report if it's less busy. And we can give you headline information on that. Because what we can see is the referring web page. So we can see where people have found GriefChat, and then we can see the web page that people are on. So we know if they're on your website, and we can also see what page they're on your website, which is really helpful actually if you're working on the system, to kind of be able to make sure your answers are appropriate, because you can kind of see where people are coming from, literally. So yeah, we can give you chat reports, and it will give you some headline data. Can supporters keep coming back? Yes, they can. Absolutely, they can. And people do. And people sometimes just come back to say, thank you, that was really helpful. Or they come back to say, actually, I'm going to go and get myself some counselling. Or they can come back 2, 3, 4, 10 times if they want to chat to a counsellor. That's what we're there for. We tend to limit chats to about an hour. Our average chat time at the minute is about 24 minutes. Some people come on, literally want to ask a question and disappear. Some people want to come on and just check something out. Some people do stay a good hour and have a really in-depth conversation with the counsellor, and that's all fine. In that sense, we work with what people bring. We tend to limit chats at about an hour because that's enough for both the bereaved person and the bereavement counsellor. But people are always told they are more than welcome to come back and chat again if they want to, and if it's helpful for them. Just minimize those for a minute and go back to the slides because I'm conscious of some time. I won't go into this in detail, but essentially I want to reassure you that all of the counsellors who work on GriefChat are both qualified and experienced. They're all professional bereavement counsellors, and we do look for bereavement experience very specifically. They're all enhanced DBS checked, they're all supervised, they all do endless amounts of CPD, we know because we provide quite a lot of it. And it takes quite a long time to become a GriefChat counsellor. It would probably take 3 or 4 months to get through a training programme and be signed off as a probationary counsellor. So we do work really hard to make sure that all of our counsellors are skilled and experienced and good at what they do. One of the things we're very keen on is the quality of the service. We're available 9 till 9, Monday to Friday. We don't work bank holidays because nobody likes to work bank holidays. We may extend those hours in the future, resources depending. The more partners we get who are paying subscriptions, the more opportunity we have to add more counsellors and extend the opening times and so on and so forth. You can white label GriefChat. So quite often, if you look around the internet to other organisations and you see a chat box that says it has a bereavement counsellor behind it, it's almost certainly GriefChat. You may see somewhere on that box powered by GriefChat or provided by GriefChat, but you might see somebody else's brand. For example, Cruise, they white label GriefChat as Cruise Chat, which works really well because we act and feel like part of that organisation. And we do our absolute best to uphold the kind of qualities and purpose of your organisation. There are no limits on chats, and support can be one-off or ongoing. We also provide lots of other services like bereavement helplines and longer-term counselling face-to-face or webcam or however, if people need additional services, and we can do that on a business contract. We're also members of the BACP and the National Counselling Society and the UK Employee Assistance Professionals Association and the Society of Allied Independent Funeral Directors and the National Association. I think you get the drift. But we're members of all kinds of organisations that we value their standards and we uphold them as well. That's kind of what GriefChat looks like. It's a little chat box. The branding is slightly different now because we've updated the logo. But essentially, the only thing that is automated about GriefChat is that an initial message. And on some boxes, it will say, hi, GriefChat here. Is there something we can help you with? On other boxes, it would say, hi, I'm a bereavement counsellor. Depends on your box and whether it's white labeled to your organisation or not. But essentially, that's how it works. And you can see at the bottom, there is a little feedback tool. You can give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We get an awful lot of that. 99% of them are thumbs up. But we also get a lot of qualitative feedback as well. People actually saying that was really, really helpful. Or thank you so much for your time. I'm going to come back and talk to you again in a few weeks, whatever it might be. But you can also see how it took off. So we had this idea back in 2017, after I got myself off the beach. We piloted the service in 2018 and took 653 chats, and we got tremendously excited when a chat came through, when the system rang, and we were like, oh, somebody wants to talk to us. I remember the time we had 4 chats on at once. It was a revelation, and we were tremendously excited. And then it went nuts. So in 2019, things started to take off a little bit. We did 2,000 and some chats. And then the pandemic hit. A lot of bereavement services had to stop. The whole world moved online. And we did 20,000 chats in 2020. And we have more than doubled that this year. And I fully expect to more than double it again next year. As people become more confident of using these services, they just get busier and busier. And I think tomorrow we will tip over our 65,000 chats. That'll be a moment of celebration, I guess. It's a lot of people. And we get fantastic feedback. If anyone's interested, we can give you a whole long list of quotes as people have told us it's really valuable. And I think the value is in the fact that it's very light touch. People can come and go as they need to. They can have a really detailed conversation with the counsellor if they like. But it's also a really good gateway service so that people can test the water, they can dip their toe in, see if they think they might benefit from some longer term support, and we can help them to find that. Let's give you a couple of examples of how it looks. So this is on the At-a-Loss bereavement service, which is essentially, it's a search function to find bereavement organisations. We run stands and yeah, there's a whole list. If you want to have a look on the GriefChat website, there's a whole list of the charities and other organisations that GriefChat sits on. And essentially, we kind of just sit at the bottom of your website, loitering to talk to people. And all we really ask you to do is to tell people that GriefChat is 9 till 9, Monday to Friday, and it's provided by professional bereavement counsellors. We can give you words for your website, we can give you ideas for your webpage, but it's very much up to you how you present it. And this is just an example of the Great North Air Ambulance, who added us quite recently. We've got a few air ambulances now, which is great. So we're on essentially on an InMem section there, so that when people might come to donate and then they look for a little bit of extra support, they can find GriefChat there, which is really handy. Question, is it available to partners who aren't Optimum? Absolutely, yeah, there will be a little subscription fee. It's not particularly huge, but obviously we have to pay for the service somehow. But yeah, please do get in touch, and my contact details are at the bottom of these slides, or get in touch with Much Loved and they will point in our direction. Just going to check the Q&A. There we go, that's fine. So essentially, in a nutshell, GriefChat sits on your website. It improves your bereavement care provision. It gives you a bereavement care provision if you don't have one. It also improves your signposting capability. Hopefully it improves the confidence of your staff, because actually when you talk to bereaved people, and you might not be that confident in doing so, hopefully you are, but if someone's telling you a really difficult story, then you can say to them, actually, we have this service on our website. Would you like to chat to a counsellor? Here's where you go. And it's very fast access and provides good support when other services might be more difficult to get into. We can also offer you support and training. We do lots and lots of training around communicating with bereaved people, supporting bereaved people, setting up bereavement groups, bereavement services, anything around bereavement, loss, counselling, therapy, we can deliver training on. And you'll probably have seen actually that Much Loved do run a bereavement course, probably once a quarter at the minute. The next one might be April actually. So look out for those as well. And as a part of that, you would get a sort of access to our UK-wide team of counsellors if you want to refer people into longer-term counselling. That's going to be the end of the whistle stop tour, because I'm already conscious that we are almost out of time, if not already out of time. If anyone has any other questions that they want to ask, I'm more than happy to hang out and answer them, and yeah, pop them on the chat or pop them on the Q&A. These are our contact details. Otherwise, please do talk to your much loved partner, manager, and yeah, it's hopefully helpful. Give you some ideas as to how GriefChat works. Oh, there we go. Sorry, Nigel. I've just got one more question here. As an NHS trust and charity, how can you use GriefChat, and what would the sign-up cost be? Short answer, Nigel, is if you're an Optimum partner, there isn't a cost of up to 500 chats. We do have some of the hospital foundations, like I think we've got 2 or 3 hospital foundations who use GriefChat. So in that sense, no sign-up costs if you're an Optimum partner. Drop us a line and we can chat through that. And then Lucy, sorry, Sally, curious as to whether the chat sits on your website. It sits on your website. It's a bit of HTML code. You copy it, you paste it into the body text of your website, and it pops up on your website. So, yeah. Sorry, Sal, back to you.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I was just going to say somebody else asked if the presentation will go out. So yes, we'll send out a recording. And if you want a copy of the presentation, I'm sure Catherine will be happy to share that.
Yeah.
I was also going to say, actually, if you have got GriefChat on your website, I think it could be something quite valuable to include in your stewardship communication to your fund holders. You know, once you're sending out a communication to say thank you for setting it up, then, you know, if you've got GriefChat, then please do highlight that within your stewardship communications, because obviously you're giving people access to immediate and free bereavement counselling, which they might be incredibly grateful to have access to. So, and if you're an Optimum partner and you haven't got GriefChat and you want it, then please get in touch with me or your account manager and we'll sort the process out. You do have to set up have a contract in place with GriefChat, but we can start the ball rolling for you. And if you're not,
just to reassure people, it's mainly about data protection. So obviously we have some data, so that's what the contract is for mainly.
Excellent. Yeah, it's quite straightforward. There's another question that's come in. Do some hospices have GriefChat alongside their own emotional wellbeing team?
Yes, lots of them. Yeah, and it was really handy again in the pandemic when a lot of face-to-face stuff had to stop. People could say then, do you know what, we're not providing this service, we can support you over the phone, or actually go on the website. Yeah, quite a lot of hospices have GriefChat.
Yeah, it's definitely not intended to replace that sort of face-to-face, one-to-one communication, but I think it provides a really valuable immediate response that you know, people will really value and benefit from. Excellent. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending this morning. I hope you found it useful and insightful, and now you know what's available, an extra benefit that's available to you through your much loved partnership. If you want to go ahead with it, then please do get in touch. Any questions that you've got as a result of this webinar, then please do let me know. I'll make sure that the recording goes on our support site within the next couple of days, and your account managers will be in touch just to give you the link so that you can share it with your colleagues and team. Yeah, happy to send out the slides along with the recording, as long as Catherine sends them to me. I can forward those on.
No problem at all.
Excellent, great. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this morning. Have a lovely day. And we'll see you in this platform, this internet ether at some point next month.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Nice to not see you all, but see you all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit strange, isn't it, talking into nothing?
Yeah, I much prefer the meeting setup where you can see everybody's little face.
Yeah, maybe we should reintroduce those rather than the webinar. I think sometimes people quite like being hidden.
Yeah, it's convenient.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent,
great. Well, thanks very much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.